Now I've just opened up week 4 sampling here, so that should have been available in this lesson's files, and hopefully it's all come in correctly. So you should see when we open up in the arrangement view here that you have the drum kit up the top and this melody. So if we play this, we just got a nice little drum kit going on here, and which is just a 2-bar loop, and then we've got a 4-bar synth chord loop as well. So these are just some loops that I had from some packs in my samples. But the whole point of this exercise is that we're going to use the techniques that we used when we looked at Simpler. And what we're going to do is chop and rearrange and do whatever you want to these so that we can make an entirely different beat down the bottom here on our own. So what we'll do, first things first, obviously these 2 tracks here are empty. We can't play those yet. So if I play that on my keyboard, there's nothing happening. There's nothing here. There's no instruments. So we need to let's bring over the drum kit first. We've got our original drums here. What we can do is just double click this track, our new drums track with nothing on it. And we can just click and drag this drum kit down to here. Okay, so I've got this drum kit down here now. So if I hit A on my keyboard, which should be playing C3, you can hear that it plays through. Now for something like this, I'm probably not going to use classic, because then I'll have to hold my key down, and it doesn't really give me much flexibility when it comes to picking sounds, unless I make like 6 of these tracks. So if you remember what we used last time to get all those different sounds, it was slice. So I'm going to click slice. And because it's a drum track, Ableton's done a pretty good job here of picking the sounds. I'll just make sure. So to play the first sound, we'll have to go to C1. So hit Z on your keyboard and hit it twice, and that will bring you down to C1. Okay, so we got our first hit, that kick. That sounds pretty good, that's fine. Now you'll see here, the hat's fine, but right at the end, you're starting to get a little bit of that next sound, that next hit. So we don't want that. So what I can do is just drag this along to about here. And now you'll see we've got a nice clean hat. We don't have that next, the beginning of that next sound. Same thing here, this is all fine. I'm starting to get a bit of that next percussive element, which would be the tom. That sounds fine. So just make sure you're not introducing the next sound at the end of the sample. So just double check all these. That looks good. Just one over here. And yeah, it's just those ones. Okay, so yeah, just fix those up just so you don't get unwanted sounds when you're hitting the drums. Now we got those drums in. Let's just turn this melody off for now. We'll just focus on the drums. Okay, so that's how the original one went. I'm sure we can make something a little bit nicer. Add your own flair to it. So I'm going to make my own little drum beat. You can either copy exactly what I do or just make yours as I go along. You can also feel free to change the tempo here if you want to make a completely different track. I'm probably going to do that with mine. So I'm going to go right down to 80 on mine. So let's just turn off these original drums. That way we just hear the metronome and you can start playing around with your keyboard to find a little pattern that you like. Okay, I'm going to record this in. So if you want to draw them in, make sure you highlight the section, Command-Shift-M to create your MIDI clip. And then remember that C1 will be the first hit. And then every semitone up will be the next drum sound. So it's probably best just to zoom in here. That way you can see what you're working on. But for this one, I'm just going to record it in. Okay, pretty happy with that. I'm going to quantize all this. And then I'll just duplicate this one over. Now, one thing I've noticed is I heard some weird cutting out. So if we go back into the drums here, you might have seen that you can't actually play two sounds at the same time. If you hit two keys on your keyboard, it's always going to cut one out. So if you remember back in one shot, how we had the voices, I actually forgot to cover this section and last I was too busy with the slice by. But you see over here, you got playback. At the moment it's set to mono, so that means it's only going to play one sample at once. What we want to do is set that to polyphonic, and now we can play as many of these sounds at the same time as we want. Another thing I'm going to show you all now is when you're recording your drums in, don't feel like you have to do everything at once. Like you don't have to record the snare, the hat, the kick, the toms, the percussion all at once, and you have to get it perfect. What you can do is record, you can even just record the kick the first time around, come back, then you can record a snare on top, then you can record the hat, and you can just layer it up like that. So you'll notice if I hit record now, and I try and do, let's say, just the hat here. So I just want to add this on. But I don't want to get rid of what I've done, and I hit record. You'll notice I'm actually deleting or overriding what I did, so I definitely don't want to do that. The way to overcome that and actually be able to record on top of what we've already done is to make sure this little plus symbol here is on. So instead of replacing notes when you record, you're actually going to add on to it. And this is what we want. So if I hit record now, you'll see that we've still maintained our kick and our snare or our clap. And I've just added a hat on top. I'm not really happy with that pattern. I'm just going to redo that. Okay, something like that's a bit better. Again, I'm going to quantize these notes. So the shortcut for that is Command U or Control U. Now you can see that one was a little offbeat there. Just going to move that across. Now I like that pattern. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to duplicate this over. Make sure I'm selecting the correct range. Okay. Now, what other sounds have we got in here? So we've still got some stuff we haven't used. Okay, I might add this shaker and some percussion. I kind of like how that swings. I don't want to quantize this top one. Just makes it a little imperfect, which is nice. And now I'm going to add this little percussive element. Okay, I was a little off on a few of those. I'll leave that. I'm pretty happy as long as it's close. I'm going to duplicate this clip over to here. You'll see if I just select the clip and then hit Command D or Control D, it's going to be off center. That's because I recorded and went overtime. It was a bit longer than 2 bars, so I just need to clip this back here. Not too far, and then I can just duplicate this one over. Just turn off this metronome so we can hear it properly. This last one sounds a little off. I'm just going to drag that a little bit later. So I'll get rid of it altogether. Okay, to mix this up a bit, I'm also going to tweak some of the velocities. Now we've gone over velocity before, but I'm going to show you now a way that I would tackle changing velocities on multiple notes, and the easiest way to do that. So I'm going to change the velocity just of these little 16th notes at the end here. I kind of want it to fade out and then back in. I'm going to highlight these, and then all I have to do is select my draw tool or hit B on the keyboard. This is probably one of the exceptions where I do use the draw tool often. And then I'll just draw in the line that I want. So you see if I hold it here, it's actually making it quieter and louder. So I'm just going to draw down. Something like that. Just hit B to get out of draw mode again. I'm just going to tweak these ones as well. Because you see if you highlight them and try and change one, it's going to move all of them at once, unless you hit B and go into draw mode. Feel free to put your own spin on this. You don't have to do what I'm doing. You can do a dance track if you want, like a faster 130 BPM track, or a slower hip hop track. Yeah, feel free to mix it up and add your own little spin to it. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with those drums. Now we're going to move on to the melody. So let's listen to it on its own here. Obviously, I have changed the BPM, so it's going to be a little different. I'll just put it back so we can hear the original. We've got our empty melody track down the bottom here. There's nothing in it. The same thing, we're going to grab this original melody, and first we're going to make sure we double click this. So I'm just going to drag this melody down to here, to our empty track. And you'll see now, you should have it in there. Should be able to play it on your keyboard. I don't want to stay in classic mode for this because we've got so many different chords here. Same thing, I'm going to go to slice. Now let's see what Ableton's done or managed to do. It's pretty good, except that first note there's a little weird. Just going to zoom in on that. I'm just going to get rid of this marker because I think it's just confused. That's a little better. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how Ableton's actually chopped it up there. So it's managed to figure out where the chords are because the transients are quite clear. For this one, I'm going to draw it in. So I'm going to create MIDI clip. Make sure I turn this one off. And I'll put my drums back on just so I can get a feel for the track. And yeah, pretty much now I'm going to go in and just see what I can create out of these slices. So just by chopping up this chord progression, we can get something completely different to the original. Okay, I'm going to copy that across. I'm going to change it up a little bit in the second part. Might just add something here as well. Alright, cool. I'm going to leave it there. I'm pretty happy with that. If you want, you can spend as much time on this and play around with it as much as you want. I encourage you to as well. Sort of get a feel for how it all works. Get used to slicing samples up and mixing them and rearranging them to suit your track and what you want to create. We'll go back to the original. So I'm just going to put this back. This was the original sample. And then I managed to put my own spin on it, come up with this. So it's a little different, bit of a hip hop break beat sort of a vibe. There's many ways you can go about this. You can twist this to anything you want. I'd love to hear your examples as well. And yeah, that's essentially this exercise. It was to get you used to using simpler, to introduce you to sampling in general. In this exercise, we mainly use the slice mode, but what I'm going to show you in the next video is how to apply sampling and using the simpler and different way into your own tracks.